There's nothing nice about it, sir. There's nothing nice about getting beat up or getting killed in prison. No one's going to be nice to you. When they come to make sure to prove a lesson to whoever's going to come after that. I've been in a cell where the cell was supposed to be white and it's red of blood of it's not going to be nothing nice. It's going to be the harshest punishment they could give out. They're going to use knives, locks, boots, and this is the reality. It's a world of criminals.
I met two long-term prisoners, former high-level drug dealers who had prominent roles in the Sinaloa drug cartel. They'd worked closely with El Chapo, El Mayo, and the Beltran Leyva group. They'd also been on the tier where Jeffrey Epstein had died at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, the MCC, in downtown New York. And I asked them, was the death of Jeffrey Epstein suicide or homicide? They laughed. They laughed without a second's hesitation, and they said, suicide. The last episode of CrimeWaves was called Rocking the Baby to Sleep, and it was an interview with one of those former high-level inmates on conditions inside the MCC that could have driven an inmate to kill themselves. This episode is another CrimeWaves exclusive. It's a virtual meeting between one of those men and Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, a man who has never had any connection with his brother's lifestyle, but who has, for the last 5 years, been trying to investigate the circumstances around his death. And in this conversation, they discuss conditions inside the MCC, the lack of sanitation, the rats, cockroaches placed in the food, the abuse by the other prisoners. And they also discuss the corruption of the guards, the non-functioning video system, and the unlocked cell doors. Welcome to CrimeWaves.
The people that cook the kitchen are the inmates. They know exactly who's where. They have a count of where the food's going.
And what do they do to those trays?
It's the worst kind. I mean, you're gonna see they're gonna send roaches, they're gonna send rats, they're gonna write letters or whatever the case is. So that's the hardest part, because the mental thing. You have to kind of like, you're taking a gamble the way I look at it. So I didn't eat. I lived off of noodles and peanut butter.
Do they put feces in it?
Feces, roaches, who knows what else you could imagine. They'll like write notes saying, oh, like, I hope you like my kids when you eat or something like that. They'll write notes.
How easy or hard was it to like pay for and get special favors? Was that possible? Like if you wanted to pay for food, could you do something like that?
Absolutely. Money is power in there.
How do you do that? Do you do that through your attorneys or something?
I'm going to be like, look, I'll get the information, and then, on a phone that's not recorded or something, I'm like, hey, send this information, hey, send this person this much money, send it every, month or whatever. Right. And then there's those occasions where, depending who the individual is, as bad as it is, sometimes they do respect certain inmates that have some type of street authority or that type of, if they're violent, or especially if they're like, if they could cause them a lot of trouble, they'll respect that. So they could be trade-offs. He might be like, look, I'm going to make sure that we don't flood the range. Flood the range is like when people don't get what they want, they'll flood the whole floor of water, cover the doors and cover the toilets, and they just flush, break sprinkler system. So they'll use that against, so like, hey, I need a phone call. And then what you do is just say, if that person could make the phone call, he'd be like, how would I do it? Like, don't worry. That person, you give them the phone number, they'll be like, call this person and ask for this, tell them that you're calling on my behalf, and give this information to them. And then they'll do the rest part. Hey, my cousin called. Could you please do that for me, or whatever the case is? Or
but it was the guards that would make these calls for you or pass the messages?
No, they'll bring the phone. Like they'll bring the phone, and like they have a phone, and they'll bring it to you and be like, right, okay, you get a recorded call, but they also have the ability to give you regular phone calls.
Right.
And that's basically their way to like keep the peace sometimes. Like, I'll give you a phone call, or whatever, because
do you have to pay them to do that?
You could pay them for sure.
Because the reason I ask is that the night before my brother died, he made a phone call from the shower. Someone gave him a phone in the shower, and I was wondering, how that happened. I mean, I don't think that's a normal routine. So I was wondering if he had to pay somebody for that privilege.
It's not. If the phone wasn't recorded.
No, it was not.
That tells me that someone sent someone money in order for that to happen. Meaning he said, hold on, I could get you that money. I'll send you a cash app. I'll send you whatever. And you get on the phone, be like, okay, you're gonna send me a cash app? Yeah, how much you gonna pay me? Whatever, $100 or $200, whatever the case is, $1,000. Then they'll let you get the phone so that you could say, send me the cash app. Once that person gets it, it's not gonna be the guard getting the money. It's gonna be a family member, a friend, a fake account somewhere
Okay,
that's gonna receive the money, and then they'll let you make the phone call.
I see.
And then you buy the minutes, basically. You be like, give me 10 minutes, give me 20 minutes. That's very possible.
It's not legal. So we're
No,
talking
it's not legal.
undercover
No,
payments, all that stuff.
absolutely, it's illegal. This is like we're talking about it's past corruption already, okay?
Those guys, the MCC guards, were dealing drugs, dealing phones. One guy even had a gun inside it. There was a serial sex abuser, a rapist, murderers, killers, and those were the guards. Like never mind the inmates. Those were the guards in the
Yeah.
MCC.
That SWORD team had to go and actually take over all the correctional officers for the MCC. And they told me, look, they found a bullet. There's a gun. It's a mess. They can't pay me to go back and do that overtime. They can't pay me. There's no guards. They're basically going to fire everything. And it was that bad. Where even the other guards didn't want to go work there.
Now, at one time, you and I were talking, and you mentioned that they left the doors unlocked. Tell us about that, please.
So there's a couple of times where we say if it was a cool CO, like a cool correction officer, someone in there that had a good relationship with the CO would be like, hey, let us out. Let's go watch this movie or something, and they'll let us out after count.
What?
They'll let us out after count. They'll unlock the doors, after a count, and then we'll go, watch a movie. And then when they're gonna do the next count, we'll go back in and and lock our door until the count cleared, and then we'll come back out, and then sometimes we'll stay out to the next count.
And it's the guys. So these are the guys in the local unit of your SHU. So the guys in the central headquarters would never see that these guys were unlocking the doors and letting you guys come and watch movies.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, on the tier where my brother was, it was locked up and there was a corridor, and I believe it was the special housing unit, but it was just like a corridor with 4 cells on each side. So I had been told by different sources that cell doors were left unlocked. I mean, I don't think they could go out and watch a movie anywhere because they couldn't get into.
No, I don't mean to go outside the prison. We'll stay in the range in the tier.
No, but on the tier where Jeff was, I mean, it was just a corridor with 4 cell doors. I mean, if they came out, the only thing they can do is go into somebody else's cell.
No, I've been there before. I've been there. That's why there's different sections. There's different, little hallways.
Right. So I was wondering if those cell doors would be left open, so the prisoners could communicate, and if possible, would they be left open like overnight? If they were locked up at 10 o'clock, would they leave them open till the morning when they did another? Because they weren't checking through the night.
Yeah. Okay. So I've never been in that situation where those doors were unlocked.
Okay.
Because technically, in those environments, the doors have to be locked all the time. Like even for us to come out, remember the chokehold opens, we have to, cuff up. They have that procedure. I've never witnessed that in that area, like with a shoe, like where the doors would be open.
But in your area, they did that once every week, once every week. Every week. It was that common. So look, we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein death in the prison, and you and I were talking. What is your first reaction, suicide or homicide?
First reaction was suicide. Like I 100%.
Why?
I understand. Just because I've been in those environments. I'm like Declan said, like my life, I've been basically had that criminal mind. I was raised since the age of 7. I've been in these environments. I know what it's like to struggle. I felt like I might not look like it, but we're kind of almost groomed to suffer in these situations, right? But it's even hard for some of the other people. While I was incarcerated, 2 inmates committed suicide in the prison I was in. It gets overwhelming. The biggest thing I just felt like it's a scary moment because you're able to communicate with other inmates through the doors. That's how you communicate. It's like it's an environment that if you're not prepared for this, it's hard on your mental. So I will explain, like I come from a background where in my life, I was wealthy. I had everything you could think of. I had people that worked for me. I had people that would kill for me if I asked them to. I was in that environment. And then you come and you're not that person anymore. Everything gets taken away from you. Your family, That's hard on your mental. And I just thinking about him and his background, to think that you're facing these type of charges that are probably like, that's the number one worst charge you could have in prison. And you're around nothing but criminals and killers. And they're going to tell you every chance they get. The COs are going to tell everyone. The COs might be carrying you and still be walking you through and be telling you, you're going to fucking get raped. You're going to get beat the fuck up. Ooh, watch what is going to happen to you when you get there. When someone's not built for those environments, you don't know no better. I explained when I first in there, I said, wow, this is going to be prison? I'm going to tell you, I had all kinds of thoughts go through my mind because it's a slow suffering.
Jeff wasn't in like a general population. He was in his own cell where he had one roommate. So I don't think he was, I don't think he was with the general population where he had to worry about being attacked that way. But see, let me first explain. When I first heard that he was dead from an apparent suicide, I just accepted that as fact. I had no reason to doubt it. So I don't want you to think that, I don't want to believe my brother might have killed himself. I fully believed it. But what happened when they did the autopsy the next day, the pathologist said they can't call it a suicide now because it looks too much like a homicide. And then other facts started coming out. Another important part, I understand what you're saying about how terrible this is probably on somebody mentally and, the stress. But when he was first arrested, like a month prior to his death, his attorneys called me and they asked me if I would participate in his bail to try to get bail. And I said, yes, I put up my house in Florida, but he didn't get bail. And then a few weeks later, they called me back. Now Jeff was putting up, I think it was somewhere around $70-80 million worth of stuff, his house, his jet, a lot of stuff for bail. And his attorneys asked me, because they were going to appeal bail decision. And they asked me if I would guarantee his entire bail, in essence, doubling it. Okay. And I agreed to, and when I found out after he died that the hearing for the bail appeal was in a few days. So I started thinking, like, why would he kill himself if in a few days he has a hearing coming up where he may get bail? Because at that point in time, his bail with me matching it would have been the highest bail in U.S. history. So that was, then other things came in. People, I hear that cell doors were left unlocked. The marks on his neck didn't really, the autopsy results were iffy and whether it was a suicide or not. So then questions started coming up. And other people were saying he was probably killed to shut him up. So that's why I been looking into this. It would have been a lot easier for me if it was clearly a suicide.
Yeah. It's understandable, sir. I will tell you something, just from me and my background and understanding the criminal world, being in prison. It didn't matter if you would have put 3 times the amount. He was never going to get a bond. It doesn't matter what attorneys. I've had some of the best attorneys in defense attorneys in the business as well.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I was never going to get a bond. It didn't matter what you give up. That's a fact, and everyone in prison will tell you. You got those charges, forget about it. There's a difference between, a hope, a dream, or something is not going to happen. I really think that, from my experiences, because we don't know how mentally strong they are. We don't know what type of news they get. We don't know what they're handling. And even if you're not in a regular institution, the hardest part about this is for you to go back to this cell and think that this is going to be the rest of your life, especially if you're losing friends, you're losing the world, that your family or everything that you've known comes back to this, whatever, 5x8 room with a stainless steel toilet.
Right.
Hi, it's Declan. Just a quick note. If you are enjoying this special episode of CrimeWaves, that's an exclusive interview with Mark Epstein and the former high-level Sinaloa drug cartel dealer about conditions inside the MCC. That's the prison where Jeffrey Epstein died. Please rate, review, like, or subscribe to CrimeWaves. We are a university podcast. That means that we don't do ads. We don't have sponsorship of any kind. We are just investigators. We are resolutely independent, and we have absolutely no political agenda. So if you like our approach to investigations, please do subscribe to our program. It will help boost the visibility in a massive way. Thank you. And now back to the show.
The hard part about this is because of your brother's profile, high profile case. I don't know if he'd ever be okay to even walk a regular yard. Meaning you would take that chance at times. You would say, no, let me take this chance because I don't want to be in here. hopefully I could pay somebody off and they'll let me be free in the unit. But when you're there, it's hard for you to envision what tomorrow's like. And then again, everything I know about the criminal world, there's nothing nice about it, sir. There's nothing nice about getting beat up or getting killed in prison. No one's going to be nice to you. When they come to make sure to prove a lesson to whoever is going to come after that. And the reason being is because of this. You're in a men's prison. All these men mostly have kids, okay? They have loved ones. One thing they don't care, anyone who they consider to be a rapist, a child molester, any sexual crime, anything that has to do with that against women or kids, that's their enemy, because they can't be fathers.
Right.
They can't be brothers. They can't protect their family. So anyone that comes for that, when they're going to make sure that everyone knows what happens to them.
So will they be screaming through the walls at them?
I'm going to tell you, it's going to be worse. They're going to scream through the whole damn block if they could. It's a bad feeling. It's like I've been in a cell where the cell was supposed to be white and it's red of blood. It's not going to be nothing nice. It's going to be the harshest punishment they could give out. They're going to use knives, locks, boots, and this is the reality. It's a world of criminals. I mean, myself with my background, I had to worry about stuff like that, you know? I'm in the environment where that's how I was raised. So I could maneuver. I could actually talk to someone. I could say, hey, you know what? I get it. Right now, we're in the shoe. Let's just be okay, because, you know, we're in this situation where you're not going to get it. You're not going to have, be able to touch me anyway. So, you know, sometimes mental does help. But for someone who is not from that world, I don't care how much money you have. It's going to be hard, because that alone is going to remind them like, oh, that's what you think, especially if you're white and you're in a world which mostly probably everyone in there is poor and a different race. The first thing that popped to my head, oh, you think you're going to just buy me like that? And it basically, that environment tells me, look, another thing that you have to consider as well, and as I told Declan, is that everyone's in there to go home. Every criminal knows that they have eyes and ears. That's potentially a way to get home. In the prison system, especially in the federal prison system, they have something that's called a Rule 35. Are you familiar with it, sir?
You're talking about whether they can flip. So if somebody saw somebody kill Epstein, they could flip
call a prosecutor and say, hey, I got information if you deduct my time. That's what everyone's looking for. Any case, they'll frame officers. The smart ones will be like, okay, let me buy this phone. And then that's their get out of jail free card. Because they'll reach out to, U.S. government and be like, hey, I got a corrupt officer. I need some time off. There's no prosecutor in the world that was not going to say no to that. And this is what prison system is. They reward cooperators. They reward people who come in and cooperate. Now, I'm not sure how many individuals were at that part of the shoe at that time. Or was he alone? Because like in my case, I was alone.
No, there was a bunch of other prisoners on that wing. He was in this cell for the first time by himself that night.
So, because I will tell you on the other side of it, sir, when you're in those environments, I don't need to get up and look to see what's going on. I told this to Declan. You could sit there and, oh, count's coming. Oh, they're going to pass out hot water. Keys are ringing. People are doing stuff. If you hear a noise that's out of the ordinary, the first thing you do is jump up and go check what's going on. You don't have nothing to do. You have a little window. That's all you want to do is peek out and see what's going on. We're trained mentally to pick up on these routines. If somebody's walking towards your door, you're going to right away be like, okay, like, what do they want? Who is it?
Even at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning?
I mean, unless you're really, really sleeping. But yeah, but just for instance, like for many years, I mean, I did this for a long time. Like I know I'm hearing keys. I'm waking up at 3. If they didn't come at 3 a.m., I know I'm waking up 3:04. I'm hearing the keys. They're coming. We live off of keys. We live off of doors. If a door opens, I'm already, that's the lieutenant just got here to do count. I could hear it from far away. So it's, if you hear a cart, oh, damn, that's the food cart coming. They're about to go get food. Stuff like that. You just naturally.
It's there constantly. So there was an unusual noise, even if it was the middle of the night, somebody would have heard it. And what you're saying is that if there'd been a murder, with those guys, many of them hardened criminals facing long sentences, somebody would have talked to bargain their count down.
It's my experience. They would have known. Okay. They would have had information, especially just looking at their records, see why they're there.
Let me ask you, when you were in like a cell by yourself and the door was closed, I mean, how much could you hear from the outside? How like quiet was it? Or could you, I mean, you couldn't hear a pin drop in the hallway, but I mean, how?
Well, you know what? So there's different environments.
Yeah.
In the shoe, in those shoes, it's always active. They don't know between day and night. People pick up different routines. Some people rather sleep throughout the day, and other people rather be up all night. Because when you're up all night, you're able to communicate a little bit better because it's not as noisy. So you're able to, you're going to shout a little bit, but you're going to be able to communicate. Someone might be playing chess from door to door. Someone be like, hey, tell me a story. You're communicating with people all day and night. Now, then I've been in shoes where literally you could hear a pin drop. I've been in shoes where it was so quiet. I literally could hear people passing gas, the CEOs passing gas in their office. The way you communicate is through sound. You're listening, you're basically listening to you could listen, pick up on everything. Everyone has there's different conversations going on.
And the lights are on all the time. And what you're saying would have happened with Jeffrey Epstein is people would have been screaming, you wait till you get to prison, they're going to rape your ass, they're going to come for you.
Yeah, they're going to say all that. All day and night, too. They're going to be banging on doors. For attention, they'll bang on doors. Like, literally, they put a blanket or something on the floor or something they don't, and they position themselves where they sit down and just bang, 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 bang. It's it's torture. It's torture. And then also you might have, just say there's religious groups too, so you're going to have people praying at the same time.
Right. We're not sure if that was going on there. I haven't heard any of that stuff there. But you would say, knowing your experiences, they're going to be screaming through the door, screaming through the walls, what's going to happen to Jeffrey Epstein because of the charges, because of how well known he was.
Yes, absolutely.
I got to say, I mean, for you, Declan said you were in for 14 years. You look pretty young for somebody with your experience.
Yes, sir.
I started really young.
I started, like I said, in the criminal world at the age of 7, retired at the age of 27, sir. So, I retired early. So in my world, I was probably considered to be one of the most successful ones, but I thank God I was able to leave that world behind. And
you're still around, so that makes you pretty successful in that world.
Absolutely, sir. And just to give you some background, father did prison. I grew up in a prison visiting room. My older brothers have done prison. My wife is actually doing time right now. As sad as it is, it's been part of my environment. I'll tell you, like right now, even as we speak, my wife just got sanctioned for as much as you could think of a plan of what you're going to avoid. Sometimes it's unavoidable. She just got sanctioned for an assault.
Are you still in the protection program? Are you?
No, sir.
You're free.
No, yeah, I'm not in the protection no more.
Okay.
I'm free. So, but remember, there's prison rules. If you befriend someone like that, you're that person as well. So basically, you associate with yourself with someone like that. You are that person.
And even so you can be attacked.
Yeah, even if they don't mean that, I know that person being friends with me and just say that outside of that environment is not good for them. I mean, I know that we don't even have to talk about it. So basically, for instance, there's prison rules with race and stuff like that. Me being, Mexican, if it was in certain prisons that was run by like certain Mexican groups, you're not allowed to talk to blacks. You're not allowed to hang with them. That's basically, they will treat you like the enemy, the worst, because you're one of them. You're not allowed to talk to pedophiles. You're not allowed to talk to law enforcement. You can't talk to any CO without another inmate being present to hear what you have to tell that correction officer. You break any of those rules, you're treated like enemy.
Okay, so let me return to the Jeffrey Epstein death. When I read the Department of Justice, quote, investigation report, which is really, I'll cut to the chase and call it shoddy, it doesn't seem to me that any of the inmates, except for one who contradicts the correctional officer, were spoken to. Is there a code that would have prevented those guys from speaking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're in that environment, because just say it's the MCC, so you're still going through the pre-process, right? Your court, maybe you're there on a P or something. If you're not going to be a cooperator, just say, if you don't have a great plan, you cannot speak to any report. Goes against the rules.
So unless you come forward as a cooperator,
yeah,
and then you've got to make sure that you're protected. Okay, because I see a big hole there in terms of what you said before. And again, I'm not suggesting it's necessarily murder. I'm not suggesting it's necessarily suicide. I'm an investigator thinking about this. That to me indicates that nobody inside the feds wanted to do a murder investigation or a homicide investigation. After the Attorney General said this is suicide 10 days after Jeffrey Epstein was found dead. Because why would you investigate something that your boss's boss's boss has just said this is what happened? It's career suicide.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it was less than 10 days when Boss said that statement. Wasn't it less than 10 days?
I got to check my chronology, but it was around then because the death was 9th, 10th, and then I think it was I have the 20th or the 22nd in my head.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's hard because I mean, you know, the government, just like any the government's different, but like other criminal organizations, the boss says something, you're not going to do nothing to contradict that, right? Yeah. That's your livelihood. So I get it. I truly understand. I want to let you know, like in the shoe, there's going to be there's going to be disciplinary people, fights, whatever. That's your punishment. You go to shoe, high profile cases and cooperating witnesses that can be around other, inmates because, they'll have issues. There's basically, that's your, or if you're under investigations, that's the people who are going to be in the show. Most of the time, from my experiences, like people who are in the show are always going to be like disciplinary, when they get into fights and stuff like that, cell phones, or cooperators. Going back to see, but it's going to be hard, especially if they're there and they're going to an institution. What they don't want is you never want that your name was actually written down as a witness or that you made a statement to any correctional officer, anyone at all. Well, I mean, hopefully this helps a little bit. I know it probably gives a lot of more questions and answers, but here, like, if there's any other questions or something I could help you with, I'll make myself available.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that covered the questions I had. It was very informative, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, thank you for listening to that special episode of CrimeWaves, an exclusive meeting with a former MCC inmate and Mark Epstein as he tries to make sense of his brother's death. If you found that episode interesting and you like CrimeWaves, please do rate, review, subscribe, like the show. It's massively important for us. Now, our next episode in the Epstein series will be The Case for the Defense, how Epstein's death could have been a suicide. It's a review of all the circumstances not mentioned in this particular episode that could have driven Epstein to kill himself. And then the final episode of the Jeffrey Epstein series will be a summation of the two arguments. And we will present the one definite, and to this date, uninvestigated way that someone could have successfully murdered Jeffrey Epstein. It's based on unexamined court documents, and we will be presenting it. Stay tuned to CrimeWaves.